Alright guys, so today I'm going to show you how to take this mess of wires and how to make it look like an awesome FPV station, just like this. So to start off, you're going to need a TV screen of any sorts, just as long as it fits inside your box. You're going to need a mounting bracket like the one you see here, and then you're going to what I ended up doing was taking the wire and cutting it off, making sure it had the right colors I needed. And yes, it did. So, disclaimer, after you cut these wires, you have a lot of soldering that you have to do. So just so you're aware of that. So after you cut the wire, you'll see that there is two videos, one positive, negative, and I'm not quite sure what the fifth wire does. So now we're going to go strip all the wires of the rubber around it so that it just exposes the metal, as you can see right here. Then after you take all the wire, you can go ahead and grab a helping hand, or you can take a pliers and put a rubber band around the pliers as a helping hand. So I'm using a helping hand to solder up all of my wires. I'm also using shrink tube, so make sure you put the shrink tube on before you do your soldering. Also tin the tip of your soldering iron and the wire that you'll be working with, because that's very crucial to getting a very good solder joint. And right here I am soldering the positive wires so that it provides power to my TV screen and my receiver. Then I'm going to take the shrink tube and use either a heat gun or a lighter. So here I'm just going to take the negative wire and solder it up as my ground, and I actually don't have to put the shrink tube on quite yet because there's not a fuse on the ground wire, only on the positive. So now that we have that all soldered up, we're going to put the shrink tubing on it because we're going to then solder it all up to the TV screen. So after you get your shrink tube on, then take your lighter or heat gun and shrink the tube. Then we're going to put another piece of shrink tube on it because once you strip the wire of its plastic on this side, you're going to be soldering it to the little wire that's on your TV screen. So now we're going to tin both the ground wires. And after we do that, we're then going to solder them together. And you got to be very careful because this wire is very thin on the TV screen. Then take your shrink tube and put it back down there because we're going to take a lighter and shrink the tube. So now that we have the shrink tube all done, we're going to work with the video wire. It was a little bit more interesting because there ended up actually being two wires in it. So you're going to have to deal with two wires in one spot. I've already gone ahead and put the shrink tube on the wire, so now we're going to put some solder on the wire so that it makes a very good solder joint. Make sure you get a lot of solder on it, on both sides too, because this is the video side, and then we're going to take them, connect the two, and you can see on the left hand side that I already have my shrink tube. And now we're going to connect the other side of the wire, and there's already shrink tube on that wire too. So now we're going to try and get this shrink tube to just sit just right so that we can take our lighter to it. And then we're going to put shrink tube over the whole wire so that no wiring is exposed. Then we're going to take our shrink tube and watch it just disappear practically as we run our heat tube over it. Now we're going to go ahead and just test and make sure all the wires are working and that we have power to my TV screen and the receiver. So I'm plugging up my receiver and I'm using a 3000 milliamp 3-cell battery for this all. An XT60 ran to 2 JSTs. So as you can see, we do have a live video signal from my mini quad. Then you can cut off the extra wires that you're not using because they're just extra wires. And this is roughly how it's going to look once you're done, roughly. And then the receiver I'm using is from Hobby King. It's like $55 for a whole transmitter and receiver. And that's pretty much exactly how I'm going to be holding it right there. I just put some Velcro on it and we'll just drill a hole and be done. So now we're gonna grab a drill bit and drill the hole twice as big as you need, because you will have your antenna has to be able to fit on there nice. So then I'm gonna rip off, there was all this just junk material in there, and then I'm just gonna spray paint it black later on. So here's that little plastic piece I was talking about earlier. We're gonna take that out to our saw and take the case out to the barn that has the saw, and we'll cut everything there. So now that we're out in the barn, we're gonna give a rough measurement of the box. It's like 13 inches by 8 inches, and that'll just get us the rough piece that we need. Then we're gonna get better lines with a straight edge, and we're just gonna do all the lines just so that they're more straight when I cut it with the bandsaw. So after you have all your lines as straight as possible, you're gonna turn on your bandsaw and just cut on the straight edges as straight as possible, and then we're gonna cut each side down and be as precise as possible. And just remember to keep your fingers as far away from the saw as possible, yet while being safe. So now that we're done with the last piece, we're gonna go ahead and take it and try a test fit. See how close it actually lines up. So you can see it's pretty off because we measured from the outside. So we're gonna cut it down again. I ended up taking almost a ½ an inch off each side. So I had to measure the inside of the box to get the perfect measurement, and even then it wasn't perfect. You'd have to sand a little here, sand a little there, and when it would go in, it was very hard to get back out. So now we're gonna take out that piece of wood and put our plastic piece on it. Now I'm moving the TV screen more to the left side because I want to have room for my receiver to fit. I'm going to take a drill bit so that I can take my saw later on and put it straight through that, which will make it easier for cutting, as you can see right here. So it is definitely a little bit harder cutting a square out of a square because there's not much room in it, so some weird things had to happen to get the cut complete. So now we're just going to take it and run down the edges. This doesn't have to be as perfect because my TV panel, or my screen's panel has an edge that'll fit over it. So then we're just going to cut it out to be as close to the lines as possible, even though they're not perfect lines. So now we almost have it totally finished. We're just going to cut out this little bit of wood that's just right here, and then we're going to cut it out all the way. If you don't have a table that you can cut on, you can put this also in a vice grip, which I found that worked sometimes too. But so now we're down to the final cut. We'll cut that out, and then we're going to take our TV panel and test fit it into the piece of wood and see if we have to cut out any. It ended up being there's a little tab, which was really nice because it made it a good tight fit and everything went together really nice. I was really shocked. So now we're going to test fit it in the box, and as you can see, it looks really cool. Now after we're done getting all the cuts right, we're going to go and spray paint the box and the wood that's going to hold in our TV panel. So I'm just using everyday spray paint from Walmart, black in this case. If you want, you could do yellow, red, blue, whatever colors they have and whatever colors you like. So just put a good coat of paint down everywhere that you want to be painted, and after you get it all painted up, so there's really no perfect way to spray paint. Just approximately stay 4 to 6 inches away from your object. So now we're gonna spray paint our piece of wood that is going to go into our box that we have. And make sure you get it as dark as you want, because once you get it in there in your TV screens, then you're really not gonna want to be painting over your TV screen. Make sure you get every little piece of wood, and then let it dry for approximately 10 to 15 minutes depending on how cold it is. So now we're going to go back to our workbench and finalize everything and make it all look really good actually. So here you can see we have the wooden panel and also the plastic panel that'll hold in the TV screen. So after pushing that in, I ended up just holding it together with hot glue, as you can see right here, running around on all 4 corners of it and just putting hot glue, and so far it's held up very good. And then we're going to just make sure your hot glue's at a pretty good temp so that you can lay down a pretty good bead of hot glue. And then after you get that, just push it together and make sure all the lines look even, and that when it sits in your box it's actually going to look straight. Right now I'm snaking all the wires through my panel so that my TV screen will sit very nice and it'll make it a very clean look. And as you can see, now that you have your TV panel and the TV inside the panel, it just really clicks together, and everything being black makes it look nice. So now we're going to take our transmitter, put some Velcro onto it, and then stick it inside of the wood. This is all going to be hidden away from viewer's sight. I also drilled out the hole for the TV antenna, just also so that it would hold my receiver on while I am putting the Velcro on. So once again, we're going to test to make sure everything's working, because after this we're going to hide all the wires behind the wall, if you want to call it. And after you do that, you're really not going to be able to get to this thing until you cut it out. So as you can see, we have a live video signal from my mini quad once again. We're then going to take all these wires and actually use a zip tie to make it all look really clean. So now that you have the zip tie tied down, we're going to grab a snippers and just cut off the zip tie. So that way it keeps all the wires hidden away so that they don't get mangled up or whatever. Then we're going to take it and put all the wires behind the panel except for your XT60 connector or whatever you use, plug up to your battery. It's kind of interesting trying to get it all to fit just right, but it eventually works. I ended up using a screwdriver, which didn't really work. I ended up actually bending this. I then took hot glue and hot glued it all in. Probably not the best long-term solution, but for the past month I've been using this system now, and it's worked really good. Got all the hairs from the hot glue put away, and then we're gonna do a little bit more glue and just make sure that it doesn't come loose when you're using it. So now it's done. I ended up doing a couple final touches where you can see, like right here, I put a weight in it, which I needed that to keep it level.
So here's the final product. You can see it looks really good on the tripod I mounted it to. I put a quick release plate on the bottom of the case so that it can go onto a tripod, which really makes it nice. And I added the foam to make it all look really good, and the battery fits just right there, and it holds my antennas and everything like that. So all in all, it all went together really nice. It makes it look nice, and when you go to the field, it looks like an almost professional FPV station. So it's really cool. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. Bye.